All right, hi there. Thank you so much for making it to the presentation. You can make a hit. So, just as the title says, this might be a little bit more catered towards people who are yet to get their first game out. And I hope, like everyone else who have already gotten there, can take a few lessons out of this as well, just through my experience. So, without just looking at the title, let's jump right into the presentation. First of all, this big face, as you can see here, I'm Binura, and I'm the managing director, CEO of Binacle Games, and we're a studio located in Singapore. What do? I make games, a lot of games, and by now I've probably personally made over about 100 games over the past 3 to 4 years. And I've launched two games with two of the major publishers in the world, and I'm currently running my own studio. Yeah, I didn't start off with my own studio, but now I am. But I'm not that old. I'm still in like my mid 20s, so not too bad, I guess. Not too old. And so far, I've had 6 million plus downloads. Hopefully, the numbers will go up. They're not up there, but it's not too bad, right? Not too bad. So, a little bit about how it all started. I'm actually from Sri Lanka, and over here the gaming industry is still kind of at its infancy, to say. We have not had any games published, regardless of it being profitable, until very recently. So, coming into an industry so infant at its very early stages is quite a risk to start off with, and I'm sure some of you coming from similar countries would also be feeling like, huh, like it hasn't been done before. Am I at least in the right industry? Isn't it too much of a risk? Should I just go do a IT job instead? Well, I was there too, but decided to take the risk anyway. So I joined a studio in Sri Lanka called Motion Miracles, and when we started off, we did not exactly know what to do, like every other studio who would start off. But we wanted to do mobile games more towards the casual side, the endless runners, because back then it was the thing. And we tried a couple of games actually, and we actually made some decent looking stuff, but the thing was we didn't really know how to market it regardless of monetizing it. So once we got into the stage of post production, we didn't know the publishing side. So after like a couple of attempts, we actually thought of, hey, like maybe there are better avenues to go through, and we came across this whole thing called hyper casual games. To be honest, we hated it. Like, we've seen enough of those annoying ads and we really did not want to go there. But once we saw, like, the numbers coming in, like, there was a spark to why these sort of small, simple games get millions of downloads, and that intrigued me, personally. So I was like, yeah, sure, I mean, I'm totally up to see what this is about. That's how we came across mobile game publishers. So we came across a few, and Voodoo Games actually were the first to take us and be like, hey, you guys can use our platform. Here are some tips. These are called hyper casual games. The protocols are kind of like this. We need this stuff integrated into the game. So we were onboarded into their cycle, and that's when in May 2019, I actually tested my first game with Voodoo, and it was called Takeoff. Little did I know about metrics. I mean, at that point, CPI, retention, all those were just numbers without a meaning to me or to most people at their entry point, right? But I got a 32 cent CPI, and the dashboard said that's actually quite good. And I was happy because, hey, one shot I got one of the metrics up. And I was like, oh, great, like, yeah, I could probably get the retention out in the next iteration. Well, little did I know, I could not honestly iterate on it because I felt like I put all my effort into that and I just didn't know what to do for the second iteration. So naturally, I couldn't continue the game and we had to kill it. So then came afterwards, but we didn't stop. We stopped working on Takeoff, but I continued working on new projects. So one of my favorites over here being Toy Portal is based on the game series Portal, my personal favorite game series. And in that one, I was able to get honestly like three out of like almost all three metrics at that time. However, Voodoo's publishing metrics was 40 to 42% day one retention, and unfortunately, the game could not get that far. And due to the rapid prototyping uh, concept at that point, we were encouraged to stop working on the game within like 1 to 1.5 months because we were not able to take it all the way through. But as a principle, we were able to bring down the CPI from 60 to 25 and the day one retention from 26 to 36 within about 1 month's time. Honestly, I still didn't know much about playtime, but this was apparently what game analytics is showing as what my playtime was, and it's quite good. But unfortunately, had to kill that as well. But we kept trying. We kept trying more and more games, got the CPI down, but retention was always a problem. But around this time, we were the only source of income we thought we could get was by publishing a game. But on around this time, we came across the concept of getting development service, I think developer service agreements. And the first to offer that to Motion Miracles was Lion Studios. And we were quite hyped, honestly, to get paid to make games and hey, we can cover our bills and keep doing what we love, right? And that's when the second era came. So the first era was on the left side, what you see, those were all like portfolio building projects where we spent around 6 to 10 days per iteration, mostly on the initial test. But once we started working on like the deliverables with a publisher, we had to exponentially grow our skills where we had to around service around 8 games a month to make sure that we got the retainer going. So my development cycles went from around 6 to 10 days per iteration to actually 1 to 3 days, most of them being around 1 or 2 days per iteration. And I thought that was a crazy learning experience. And we kept this going for around 3 months. And then we actually got onboarded again by Voodoo for the entire team for an exclusive service agreement as well. And that's when the hunt for the first hit started coming along. So this was around March 2020, and we were just looking at the trends out in the market, and there was hydro tipping, a game where you just put a shoe in and then put some colors and it comes out. I was completely intrigued by the idea of the fact that you can dip something and take it out with a different output, but it sparked a memory back to a few years ago of my life, maybe around 5, 6 years ago, where I used to do dip dyeing with my sister, who's a fashion designer. Because of the experience I've had, it just came to me that hey, you can like do something like that. You dip a color and you take it out only to the part you've dipped. What if you make a puzzle out of it with a reference image and you have to match that? And that was the spark of the idea. The funny story here is I actually got this idea on a Friday evening just before we went back home. And I told my partner at that point, our lead artist, Roshan, hey, I have this idea. Do you want to give it a try? And he was like, yeah, yeah, whatever. Like, tell me what you want to do and we'll do it. So the same day, within 6 hours, what you see on the screen was made. And at that point, we were offered to do CTR tests, which those are called pre-marketability tests. And within 6 hours, I made it. I made the videos and I did a pre-marketability test. The results were insane. We got 12% CTR at that point, I think even hovering towards 14% at points, and we knew we had a potential idea in our hands. But getting to that idea, probably by this time we would have made around 30 odd games, 30 to 35 games, like CTR tests, CPI tests, all inclusive, over a span of around, if I started in May, around 7 to 8 months. But afterwards, we were here. And from there onwards, I took an extra 3 days to make an actual playable version of it. Had around 6 to 7 levels in the game, and just before we pushed the game out as a build, I wanted to just be a little controversial and try something crazy. And I told my game artist once again, hey, what if we dip a humanoid in this? And he was like, my god, that's terrible, but go for it. And that little crazy idea, I wanted to make a video out of it. It was actually in the game as well. Once we put it as a video, we actually put the left side video as well, the one that got a high CTR. The one with the high CTR, the t-shirt, got around 10 cents of CPI. The humanoid got 6 cents CPI, and we immediately knew we have cracked the marketability. At that point, I remember Voodoo told us in March 2020 our game was their most marketable product as well. Why? Because we wanted to just have some fun, dip a humanoid in it into a concept that we thought we believed in. Retention wasn't great, 25%, but we were pumped up enough to want to continue it forward. So from there onwards, I took actually 1 month to make a completely different core loop, and that's how this whole cutting iteration came. This is a major mistake I did because instead of trying one feature of iteration at a time, I wanted to completely change the narration of the game into something else. After spending 1 month, my CPI increased a little bit, it was still fine. My retention actually dropped by 3%, and we have already wasted a month. The playtime have slightly increased, but it wasn't significant enough for us to compensate for the retention. So at this point, we were even told we've spent too much time and we should kill the game. But being a little naive, I wanted to give it one last shot because I really believed in the CPI. And then I took away all the extensions, cutting whatever that did not make sense to the original core loop. I removed it, and then we made this final iteration. So that was version 2. From version 2 till version 7, I improved only on the core loop, the dipping, and extending it by features that did not affect the results of the first step, which was dipping. And once we got there, the CPI stabilized a little bit more, and the day one retention actually skyrocketed all the way till like even 38, 39%. And the playtime also went up quite well. And we were told, hey, let's go forward. We're going into a soft launch. So that's how Tie and Die came to being the first game that I was able to take from just an idea all the way till the other side of publishing. Very exciting times when it's your first game. You don't know what it's like. You're so pumped, and like you start to see like your numbers go from hundreds of downloads to millions. It's exhilarating. But what was it like actually publishing a game? 1 million downloads in a week. And getting there, all it took was like patience and trying out the features that you truly believed in. Quite a few iterations as well. It actually became number 2 simulation in iOS USA almost in like 1 or 2 days, and overall iOS USA number 4. The success of this project gave myself and the game artist who worked with me the reputation and the demanding rights to almost work with any publisher around the world. We were getting bombarded with emails, and that reputation really gave us an edge to feel like we can continue to do what we want regardless of the success of the game, because we were still in very early stages. Everything was going great and I was very hyped. And around this time, we had another competitor come in called Tie Dye, which we had completely no idea of. Tie and Dye came into the charts literally 1 or 2 days later. Sorry, Tie and Dye came, like we pushed our one when we were climbing up the charts. Suddenly, Tie Dye by Crazy Labs also kicked in, and there was a competition. So because of that, I think our CPI started going up and down. We didn't have a lot of visibility, and to be honest, our understanding of launching games is at a bare minimum too when it's your first project. So we thought it would go well, but within 2 weeks, this is where it gets a bit dark. Tyandai was actually killed. So we could not really take it quite far. But what we gained out of it, not really any profit, to be honest, but we got a lot of reputation and the portfolio built to make us want to continue working on what we thought we love. And after you get a game out, at least in my case, you're in this gap where things start to get a little hazy. So you were very close, but you feel like so close yet so far. And you start to feel like the people, the teams around you, if they have not made games all the way till the end, they don't exactly relate to what you're trying to say, and you feel like your growth kind of gets a bit stagnant. At least that, I mean, I'm saying what it is like for me. And after a bit of time in that, I started to want to separate my identity from the studio, and like the partners did not feel exactly compatible with what I wanted to do as well. And I was young. I had the capacity, I felt like I had the time and effort to take a risk. So I started setting up a roadmap to where I want to see myself going forward. And that's when I decided I want to start my own studio. Until this point, I never wanted to, because I like to make games. I don't really like admin work or any sort of HR, all those other things. But in order to continue doing what I really like to do, it was important that I take a step towards what I really want to do and put my time and effort more efficiently doing more of what I wanted and continue to grow in that sense. And Binacle Studio started. It was incorporated in Singapore, and here is a little bit of like, if you are also thinking what it must be like to run a studio, here is my experience of starting a studio as a game designer or developer to go forward. At the beginning, like your energy levels are quite high. You're very hyped for the adventure. You see all these possibilities go, and like you're like, hey, I'm gonna take on the world. It gets a bit better, honestly. Around like the first week of it, you start to set up operations. You start to like see things moving smoothly. You feel like, yeah, you got this. And then you actually start to see your results aren't really keeping up with your energy and your expectations, and then you start to then I actually started feeling like, hey, the expectations are coming on me. I have to perform. I have partners I need to like impress. And hey, I don't really have much job security either. Going more towards like more and more into the weeks, and when the results aren't really keeping up with your energy, you start to understand this is a risky thing, and it becomes more work than just working for someone. You have your accounting work to do, administrative work to do, there's like invoices to do, and there's another at least another 10 things to do in more than the games you used to make. And that kind of makes you puts you in a situation where you start to question your decisions as well. But I think in my case, I've this curve was very natural, and I do not regret it because all it took was one great idea to turn everything around. And that one great idea started off as a joke. First to Life actually was an idea that came to me at a time where I was very, very, very desperate to get a good game going forward. So, how it all started was that it was just a joke. I saw Run of Life had this sperm where like the character could de-age so much to a point that you become a sperm and you keep going forward, and I thought that was hilarious. And I just wanted to take that concept forward where you actually take a sperm and make it all the way into a baby. So at this point, I had no idea whether you're going to be customizing babies. I just wanted it to be another runner like Count Master or Joint Clash. That's exactly what I did. And I pitched this. So at this point, I was actually working with a different publisher, Supersonic Games. I've been working on a few games with them. And I pitched this idea to them. They had a great sense of humor to say, why not? Let's try this. So I was offered to do a pre-marketability test one more time, and when we did this, First Life had the best results of all the marketability tests they wanted to try. And it was a very simple core loop. All I showed was just some units wiggling there, going through a few obstacles, and showing the end result. Alright, sorry about that. Yeah, so this was a simple core loop, and we went through that. We got through to doing our first iteration. To be honest, the CPI was terrible. I mean, the retention was terrible. The CPI was okay to a point we could continue iterating on it, but the playtime day one was really bad. We tried everything from a runner perspective, and from September till November, just this is all it took. And the amazing thing was the creative team of Supersonic took over the game, and they tried this baby construct iteration where you get to control the output of the baby, and that took our CPI significantly down, almost cut it by half. But the retention and playtime, they did not go up until the seventh iteration of the game. The day one retention actually dropped because we tried doing so much with the sperm. We tried making it into a baby and playing. The playtime and retention just did not want to budge for a good period of like 3 months from there. But the CPI was strong, so we wanted to continue working on it. And we did. From that time, in December, we decided to extend the core loop even further, going from a sperm to a baby to a kid to a teen who would choose their own career. We started giving more of a story into the game, like more progression, let you make choices on behalf of your character, and the CPI was stable around there, and then the retention went from being in the 10 to 13 range all the way till in to like mid 30s, early to mid 30s, and the playtime also tripled. This was because we were only focusing on level to level progression until this point, but over here we changed the concept of the game from just being a core loop to a game loop where you start off with a character, you choose their genetics, you choose their career choices, you choose what their looks and what their admirations feel like, and we gave the character a bit more personality. Every single time you make a new character, you are creating a new life out of it. So the whole concept of first to life started to make a little bit more sense. And once we knew this was the direction to go, we started integrating more and more runner sequences to the game, and we extended the gameplay from just having one level of sperms to a core loop that consisted of 8 different runner style games. So you start off as a sperm, you decorate yourself as a baby, you go to school. That was similar to Cube Surf, actually inspired by that. Level number 4 was inspired, kind of like choose your destiny, kind of like Destiny Run. And then like a lot more other mechanics in games that were very popular in the runner genre were integrated, where you collect money, you get rich, you buy a vehicle, you choose your partner, you try to find your dream house, and then become an adult all the way through. And from January 2022, where we hit all the numbers that we thought we needed, we wanted to push it a little bit further, and we tried adding more meta features, tried changing the core loop a little bit. But after you hit that one point, unfortunately, until from Jan till May, we could not actually get the results to get any better, and as a result, we kind of lost a bit of our momentum on the CPI as well, a little bit on the day one as well. So we decided to revert back the game to how it was in January, and we thought we are going to go forward with First to Life with Supersonic Games. We are so far, we are in global launch right now with 5 million plus downloads so far. Lots of A/B tests going on, so I feel like we're still at like the starting stages of it, and we're getting the breaks we deserve. Like what that means is when you're in the prototyping stage, you feel like it's an endless crunch, but the cool part is once you go beyond that prototyping stage, you actually have a little bit more free time to take breaks, do the other things you want, and work on a game that's progressively improving, and that feels great. And lastly, as a developer, as a game designer, a person who's been invested in the product, it's really fun to see some profit come in. So that's all of how it's been for the past 3.5 years. It was a little bit of a rush to get everything here, but here's a bit of my lessons that I want to share with everyone listening to this from my personal experience. So if you are a solo developer, my personal advice that worked for me is first of all, try to master development. If you can make anything, then you start to think, how can I make this better? And that will start to improve your sense of game design as well. But if you have a dedicated game designer, it's a different story. A game developer, then you can focus more on your game design. But if you want to do it by yourself, try to get your confidence in execution. That will help you make better decisions for your game overall. And try to be fast. Don't give yourself that freedom to say, hey, I'm going to take 2 weeks to make the best product, because end of the day you might end up killing it. So try to do it in 1 to 3 days. And honestly, try to learn everything, like whether it's game art or music or level design, because if you know what to do, you are always going to have a better conversation with the person who is doing it. So try to learn at every possible stage, and trust your publisher. They are a part of your team, and try to work with the publisher that feels like a teammate to you. It goes a very, very long way. A few more things about game design is that don't recreate a hit. In my personal opinion, if it has worked once, it won't work again. And change the gameplay, not the controls or mechanic. Quite often I see a lot of duplicates of the same gameplay, meaning you're trying to like make a salad and you're just changing the control from a swipe, like a sliding control, to a swipe left and right. But ultimately players know it's the same objective and the same story that you're seeing in the game, so changing the control does not make a big impact in terms of getting attention. Change the objective, try to make like a different output out of it. It could be the same control or mechanic, but give a different feel and story to the game. And one last thing is, hyper casual is not really a genre in my personal opinion. It's more of a UA, use acquisition and monetization technique. We go for low CPIs and try to get a better ARPU out of it. So don't hold back. You're not meant to make games with simple art or just simple mechanics all the time. If it works with even a bit more of complex mechanics, go for it. You're not restricted to be like to be there. And the last thing for me personally is the crunch is worth it. It's not just you who might be doing all these late nights and not having any breaks. A lot of the developers who have gotten to the other side of publishing, if you talk with them, they'll be like, yeah, we had sleepless nights, multiples, we sacrificed a lot of time, but we got there. Be healthy. Like, make sure you take your breaks, but it's not a, it's not just you, and it definitely pays off. And support does not always come from the people you work with. Sometimes it can just come from the people who you're living with, or your friends and family, or just even like people who have absolutely no relevance or understanding of games. So don't just feel like you don't have anyone to talk about your games to get excited over, because people around you can give you quite a lot of support while you're going through this uncertain journey. And from this presentation, you probably noticed that I really like to have fun with the games. First to Life genuinely just started off as a joke that I laughed for 1.5 hours after I had the idea. I told everyone, even the publisher, like all my friends, and I just kept laughing at the idea for a good long time. And that laugh is still what's keeping me smiling with that game with 5 million plus downloads to today. So have fun with it, believe in what you want to do, and I hope to see you at the other side of publishing. Thank you, and let's do some Q and A's.